A subscriber in one of my previous videos from earlier this week, it was the Law Vlog, asked me to do a legal analysis of the FouseyTube situation. For those of you who don't know about the FouseyTube situation, FouseyTube is a huge YouTuber. He's got something like over 10 million subscribers. He got famous doing pranks, real and staged, social experiments, real and staged. He then announced that he's going to be throwing this massive concert and Drake and other artists are going to show up. The concert was along a theme of hate dies, love arrives, supposed to be positive energy, etc., etc. He announced that he was throwing this concert something like 7 days before the anticipated concert date of July 15th. Turns out Drake says he's never even met FouseyTube, has no idea who he is, never engaged in appearing at the concert. The concert itself was shut down when a bomb threat was made and police came and shut the whole event down. So the event itself didn't go as planned, a la TanaCon. The first video I saw on the subject was PewDiePie dissecting the situation somewhat, and when I was looking at PewDiePie's video, you don't have to have much experience with certain issues to be able to identify their presence in any given context. I responded to the guy who asked for the legal breakdown. I said, I'm not sure that this is a legal situation as much as a human situation, because there's legalities and all things being equal, this looks like a TanaCon 2.0, but it's clear to anyone who's had any sort of experience with the human element of this that there's something a little bit more serious going on that is not law-based, but that is mental issue-based. So when I started going down this rabbit hole, I had never seen a FouseyTube video. I went to look at his channel, his motivational weight loss video, which is the banner video of his channel. In it, he discusses the fact that he suffers from manic bipolar disorder. In the event debacle itself, he made reference to it when he got into some sort of shouting match with Keemstar, who's another big YouTuber who does news and is running a 3-part documentary on FouseyTube and the whole situation. So look, there's a legal side to this. All things being equal, it is the TanaCon 2.0 situation, making warranties and representations that are not necessarily true in order to garner interest in a concert. So I'm not going to go over the same legal considerations that we discussed already in the TanaCon video. There's an element of this which is much different than the TanaCon video, which is apparent to anyone with any sort of experience on the issue, manic bipolar disorder, and someone who seems to be in a manic state, making connections in their mind and spirit that might not be there to other people who are not in that same mental state. And it's a sensitive issue. It's one where I'm not sure that people should be making documentaries on it. It's sort of like bringing people onto Dr. Phil or these daytime shows in order to exploit what they're going through for ratings. From a legal perspective, the difference between TanaCon and this is you get into an issue of mental capacity and whether or not someone can be legally responsible when they are in a manic state. From a criminal law perspective, and bearing in mind that I only studied criminal law, never practiced it, but everyone knows you have the defense of insanity. I don't really like the word for the defense, but it basically means legal insanity, that you are not legally responsible for what you've done. And so it's not insanity per se, it's just you were unable to know that what you were doing was wrong when you were doing it. So there's the issue of, can someone who's in a manic state be held legally responsible for their conduct? There's a lot of literature on the subject. An interesting analogy is to say that mental illness is an illness, much like a heart condition is an illness. So the idea is, if someone has a heart condition, is it a legal defense to having committed fraud? The obvious answer is no, because it's not related to the act of having committed fraud. But if someone has a heart condition, can it be a legal defense if, for example, they had a heart attack while driving a car and plowed into a group of people and killed somebody? Then the answer is going to be obviously yes, it's a legitimate defense, because the heart condition is related to the intent aspect of the crime itself. You had a heart attack or passed out while driving the car, and the act of having hit the person was absolutely involuntary and beyond your control. So mental illness is not an automatic defense in criminal law, because the mental illness aspect doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't know what you were doing was wrong when you did it. But coming back to a manic state where you are making connections that might not necessarily be there, having listened to all of Fousey's discussions about how he came to think that Drake was actually going to show up at the concert, to anyone who's had any experience with this type of thing, and I'm not trying to engage in stolen valor, I've never suffered from manic bipolar, I've seen it and been close to it on a personal and professional level. When you see someone who's making connections connections that nobody else is necessarily going to see, or that are not necessarily rational connections except in the mind of the person who's in a manic state, then you can get into the question of whether or not he believed what he was saying when he said it. Did he genuinely believe that Drake was going to come if a tweet got 2 million tweets? You know, these are the legal things that lawyers can pontificate over, and it's what I sort of had a difficulty with in laws. I had difficulty dissociating the legal side of things from the human side of things. There is a person behind all of this that does not need to be exploited by everyone around him and everyone who stands to gain from producing docu-series after docu-series about what, by all accounts, appears to be a manic episode. And it's a tough thing, you know. In law, a lot of the issues you see are legal issues. I mean, a lawyer, like a doctor, looks at it purely from a, what do I have to do now to solve the problem? In law. But so many of these issues have a fundamentally human element to them that transcends or supersedes the law and the application of the law. And it's sometimes a tough thing to deal with, because administering the law sometimes means ignoring the human aspect of what's going on. With Fousey, it seems clear. I think it seems clear to his milieu as well. The last thing that I read was that his parents were flying down to see him and hopefully to give him some support and help him. But you know, I watched Furious Pete's discussion on this, and Furious Pete seems to have a very accurate, sensitive, and sympathetic appreciation of the situation, having watched his video now, due in large part to the fact that his father was manic bipolar, and he can identify the characteristics, the traits, the behavioral patterns when someone is in that state. But it's the problem of YouTube. I mean, it's the problem of YouTube, it's the problem of ratings, it's the problem of everybody trying to exploit and exploit a situation as opposed to help the individual. You know, I think PewDiePie might look back on his video and regret it a little bit, because I don't think he addressed or even had any knowledge of the mental health aspect in it, and if he didn't give it enough weight, you know, before craning his neck at the car accident on the highway. It's a tricky thing to deal with. If you think that Fousey is mentally all there, then you're going to look at someone who is an egomaniac, someone who doesn't care about his fans, someone who's on a power trip, someone who's misleading his subscribers, his fan base, to aggrandize himself. If you see that there is a mental health aspect to this, everyone should step back from the exploitation side of this. Everyone should step back from rubbernecking, and people should understand that these are mental health issues, and people need support. They don't need mockery. They need a circle of friends and family that they trust and that they believe they can trust, who can help them through it. The problem of YouTube is that it is so easy to make public what can be extremely personal problems. It's very easy for people to exploit other people's personal problems for their own benefit. And it's very easy for people just to not be sympathetic to the fact that there are deeply personal mental issues going on, and people just gawk at what they perceive to be the amusement of the situation. This was a rant. You know, there's always something you can learn from a situation. You know, the legal aspects of it are interesting, but beyond the legal aspects, there's a human that, in my humble, non-accredited, non-doctor, non-therapist point of view, needs some help and is in a manic state. It seemed obvious to me before I even knew that he discussed the mental health issues that he had gone through, and so hopefully he's going to have a circle of friends who can help him get through it. And that's it. Peace out.